Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. So I was going over Live Oak lessons back when I was part of the class of 99 at Live Oak. This morning, then I left and I saw that fire. Okay. And then I saw on the news that there was some funny business with some kids writing racial slurs on a yearbook in the Morgan Hill Unified School District. Morgan Hill is the city where I live, by San Jose. I live in unincorporated Morgan Hill. And so I wanted to go over some of the stuff that I was, reading early this morning. I reviewed the paper, I added a little bit to it, and I want to go over some key points and maybe touch on what I added to it and just wrap this up. Make this a short video. Okay, so point number 1. In the absence of a sound and logical student council, that was insightful and encouraged rigorous moral discussions, the school was generally morally depraved. It wasn't the most morally depraved place on the planet, but it was morally depraved nonetheless. Point number 2, the attempts of what seemed to be white supremacists, but in reality must have been white, Jewish, and LGBT supremacists, to control the social order blew up in their faces as people think lowly of their groups when all is said and done. When we look back at the late 90s, when I was in high school, and we look back at the social orders and how those same orders and their, successors ruined America, ruined the cultures in America. They even changed my voice in my videos and fume and poison me. We think very lowly of them right now, and we think very lowly of them back then. And the people that they were trying to elevate above everyone else look like idiots when we look back at it. They look so stupid. Now here they have the top martial arts ever possible, highlighting that. Even if no one sees this video, that's very significant. That reflects a profound failure on their part. And that failure spreads to every part of the economy and every part of social life as they reduce everything that we're trying to do in America because they're insisting on their silly and toxic and evil social orders. Point number 3, there should be and should have been a universal social and moral order that gave everyone their rightful places and the insight and wisdom they needed to choose their friends and dates masterfully. The reason why I got rejected by the student president, I often don't think of her as that. Her name was Maria Mello, right? Melo, and to mellow someone out, not a coincidence. The Virgin Mary, Maria song where they're doing capoeira in the music video. At least a few people are or something, which is an Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Hispanic martial art, right? And it comes from Africa. Not a coincidence. Instead of dating the top martial artist ever, she dated some guy before that, before me. She didn't date me, but she dated some guy before I tried for her who looked like Weasel from The Devil and Daniel Mouse. I'm not mad at the guy. This is just the facts. For whatever degree I should be mad at him, for whatever he's done in his life, as the top martial artist ever, as the one who's the closest to God, that's the degree I'm mad at him. Not for dating that female per se. Point number 4. The atmosphere in the main section of the campus by the lunch lines was hostile, insincere, ignorant, and sarcastic. That's generally speaking the atmosphere of high schools in California historically. Now there's a lot more nerdy in the air, but there's a kind of nerd hostility, certain insincerity. People are ignorant and sarcastic, right? They're malicious. They kind of smirk in their own ways, whether they're smirking or not. People were self-segregated by race and culture for the most part, and that reflects the extreme ignorance of society. People need to be more mature by the time they are 16 to 19 or so. That particular high school did not have a freshman class. It started at sophomore year and went through senior year. And some people were second or third year seniors. Some people were 19, maybe even 20 there. But these are people who are like adults. And there's a few people who are right about to be adults. Lots of people there, hundreds of people there had the right to vote because they were 18 and up. Okay, so another key part of that is every choice of culture there was basically regrettable. And ironically, the Crip and Crip-like culture of the 10 or so black guys who hung out together was the best culture. Now, it's not smart to join a gang. But when you consider that, it doesn't take a genius to see why I hung out with them, because every other culture was ridiculously stupid and boring and lame and or clearly evil. So 1% of the male population or so was black, and almost all of them/us hung out together at a time when Tupac had a massive following. The other groups with other tastes in music had no insightful figures of note. They could not compare to the wisdom and revolutionary fervor of Tupac Shakur. Again, the people that they looked up to, and this is a key part here, because they talk about how they don't want their kids to look up to me or to some black people or whatever. Okay, the people they looked up to across the board could not compare to the wisdom and revolutionary fervor of Tupac Shakur, though Tupac was far from perfect. That's also important to note. Again, Tupac was far from perfect, but their role models were much worse than Pac. Also, their cultures were not forged from the civil rights movement and as a result of sabotage. So their cultures were not revolutionary. None of them. The closest thing to it was the Northern Hispanic, and there wasn't. Those guys weren't that pronounced as such at the school. Okay, and their movement was more kind of, Cesar Chavez, the farmers, the craftsmen. It didn't reach a certain point of of Martin Luther King parallels, right? They were just kind of, you might say communist-ish, no offense to them, but they were just a social movement. It wasn't this deep, profound, revolutionary movement. It was the kind of, I think that Cesar Chavez's own party, the Farmers Party or something, I forgot what it's called, it's been a while, and they weren't really super heartfelt, super inspired. They were just political, right? Now, of course, I'm sure they do some good things. I don't want to take away from whatever good things that they do, but we have to understand the differences here. We have to make distinctions here to understand what's happened and to understand what is happening. I'm not a racial supremacist. I'm a moral supremacist. Okay. What can goths, rockers, football players, pop music fans, populars with their arrogant and often corny taste and musical expression say? The high school students that had the most insightful life philosophy tended to listen to rap with a political message or hip-hop with a political message. The other groups basically did not try to correct societal ills, and they play right into the establishment's hand with no one that does not, though rap fans often play into society's hand, there is maybe 1% of them who are very much on the government's radar as they move in a way that reflects a deeper understanding of society's problems. So where did we expect to see that one student who was very much concerned with social issues, who had a divine imperative, right, who was on the government radar? It was with the Crips. Right, Community Revolution in Progress, Christ rest in peace. The Crips, the state wants to cripple the righteous person. And among them, right, because they're gangsters who are setting up whoever's righteous among them, but that's how the system was designed, so that I would be among them. And this is the interesting part when I put this here. This creates a sort of mental and intellectual intolerance for the other groups, whereas the rap fans who are not so wise subconsciously pick on the other groups for their differences and have a somewhat overlapping healthy disdain for the other cultures. The resentment is healthy, as one must rise above the sheep, or the world goes to hell as it has. So when we're looking at this thing, right, in retrospect, right, staring at the world through my rear view, so to speak, as we're looking back at it, and we say, what has happened there? Who moved masterfully there? Who didn't? I moved masterfully. No one else there did, and their grandparents and parents let them down on a spectrum. And all these monsters who didn't want me to date their daughter or didn't want people to look up to me or hang out with me, they were wrong. Because I, the top martial artist, the son of God, was exactly where you'd expect me to be. It's so extremely obvious. that the word scripture is a play on words for Crip's root. The word Crip is scrambled into the word scripture as his root without the O. And of course it goes back to the root. What is the root of a soul brother? Right? What are the commonalities with the black gangsters, right? There's a certain desire to correct societal ills that go beyond the other groups. In fact, that a black student union was superficial, but a lot of these guys were in it. And that they share the kind of black ancestors, family tree, what have you, right? They're of Nigerian descent for the most part because of the transatlantic slave trade. It's a story for another day, and I don't want to go over time here, so let's just pick and choose some key parts here and wrap this up. Okay. So let's fast forward to... Okay. If people were smart enough, they would say that an injustice for one is an injustice for all, and they would prefer universal pinpoint and moral precision. Now let's go into the details to some degree, though it might be uncomfortable. People must face reality. So let's start with the biggest groups: jocks, rockers, typical white guys, typical Hispanic students, and skaters. Okay? So I went beyond them all. I'm not going to go into the detail of that. Let's just go down here. Let's talk about some of the people that were around there that made this clear. So in 1997, I became a martial art grand champion around that time. Kobe Bryant, Tupac Shakur, the group Blackstreet, I think, was around that time. The R&B, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Kobe, Michael Jordan, Jerry Rice, Snoop Dogg, and on and on and on. All these people, except maybe Snoop Dogg, clearly went beyond everyone from every other race in American history. The governing class did not miss this for a second, and society needed to scramble to be fair. So what does it mean that we see these black people at that time, and to some degree it carries over to this time, who went beyond every other race, okay, and they have characteristics that are very similar to me? I'm very Martin Luther King-like. I'm Michael Jordan-like in various ways. I'm Malcolm X-like in some ways. Kobe Bryant-like. Jerry Rice-like. There's certain types of black people, very specific, fairly rare types of black people. And in my case, I'm the only one of my kind. And I go beyond all these guys. Tupac Shakur. Snoop Dogg, there's some, he's like me to some degree, not as much as Tupac and Martin Luther King, that kind of deep kind of care for society, that kind of passion. Okay, and of course there's Mike Tyson, Deion Sanders, Barry Sanders, Sugar Ray, Ali, what have you. So it's like the rest of the races were living in the shadow of black people, but it wasn't that because society came together to scramble, to sabotage black people. And that affects the relations in high school. So some people say, what does that have to do with you? Why are you trying to take credit for their success? You're missing the point if you think that that's the answer here is to say those things. No, it's not. Okay? I didn't get my credit in high school. People didn't appreciate me as a person. They didn't appreciate why to live a deep and worthwhile life and be honest and fair, especially in regards to racial issues. For a similar reason that Tupac Shakur ended up getting killed. Martin Luther King ended up getting killed. Malcolm X ended up getting killed. That Kobe Bryant wasn't that appreciated. It was just groupies going, oh, Kobe. But they didn't really appreciate him. And to some degree, they were right not to, because there's a limit there. Tupac and Martin Luther King went beyond Kobe Bryant as a person, as a man, as someone with a passion for something. He was more kind of childish. But they didn't really say, hey, there's some black guys that are super handsome in popular culture. Very few people said that. Only the type of people that would already date black people. Everyone who was the type of person who wouldn't date black people, and anyone like them, would not give Kobe Bryant his credit for being handsome. They didn't give me my credit for being handsome. They didn't give me my credit for being more passionate and righteous than Martin Luther King and Tupac Shakur. They didn't see it in me when they should have. Okay, so I talk about how I would rally everyone together and would have you, urge you to see the original video, and I'll put the link in the description if I remember. So we would have challenged the governing class and the adults in a way that is well researched and universally fair, and the maturity of everyone would have increased tremendously, and we would have done a better job of leading the people my age and younger than the people who ended up leading them, and by far. The jealousy in society and the families of the children my age ended up bringing them down with them. They ended up bringing them down with them. They say, you want to bring them down with you? No, you people brought them down with you. It's even called de-own, right? Down. The word own, like clown. You see things in terms of your own way of doing things. See L, you're L, and you see things in the way in terms of white supremacy. You're a racial supremacist. I'm not. So they ended up bringing their children down and their communities and their families down with them out of racism, sexual sadism, culturalism, greed, ethnocentrism, materialism, and more. Who among them lives a worthwhile life, a deep and worthwhile life? Drug addicts might think they have a worthwhile life, but do they have a universally sound argument? There are various forms of addiction. This is the part I added at the end here. There are various forms of addiction. Also, a key moral of this paper is that suppressing black excellence and sabotaging black people while gaslighting people is petty, toxic, childish, counterproductive. It's counterproductive. Greedy, stupid, depraved. And it ruins the images of whites, Jews, and LGBT people, to name a few. So to do it for image or to have a better life is insane. Like, what do you people have laughable lives as a result of being brought down by grouping together, doing the wrong thing together on a spectrum, and bringing each other down? Their propaganda campaign and their psychological operations, their social operations and social club and, social engineering processes are crazy, stupid, and pointless. The people with the worst character are the people who persecute Jesus and trample the poor, especially because they use racist tactics. Their attempts to exert sexual power are disgusting as it gets. It is not a coincidence that the word racist is like the word rapist. Rape by deception, by organized and calculated deception. And trying to control who fraternizes with who, with frats and corporations and the government, etc. People often make the mistake of insulting the other groups without doing a thorough analysis. That's also key in this. I don't just say, oh, fuck them, yeah, they were bitches, oh, that guy's a bitch. I explain to people why they're wrong. Whatever insults they deserve is whatever insults they deserve. That's not the concern of this paper. The major concern is to set the record straight. It's a spirit of setting the record straight. Even if no one hears this video, part of more repetition is to tell you what went wrong and why the opinion that matters most ever possible among people in the flesh is what I've described in this video and in the video before. Thank you.